Gets me in trouble.
Did you actually stay up there looking for?
You ready?
Thanks, CJ.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we ready to call the meeting to order? All right, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty. Roll call, we've got all board members here except for Ben Shear. First on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, which is the minutes from the March 21 regular board meeting.
I move that we approve the consent agenda for this evening's meeting. Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Public comments? Public comment. Okay, committee reports, finance.
We just met prior to this meeting, reviewed pretty much all the March regular financials, credit cards, all that good stuff. And then we got into some discussions about some things we'll talk about today in terms of some consolidated agreements, working with some other folks to provide services here. And then we went through some technology and some other spending issues coming up very shortly. And then some issues with the Headley millage, but all being resolved with their finance department. And that was it.
Thank you, Steve. Next, on to new business, and we added one item at the end, number 454. We've got eight different items, so we'll work through those. First is the approval of the NMPS Emergency Operations Plan.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years since we had updated. There's been some changes in the district and in the city. Big thank you to Chief V for his help on this. It's been approved through the county and as well as the North Muskegon Police Department, Fire Department. And so now the final approval needs to be from the Board of Education here, and then we will get that out and start our trainings with staff like we've done in the past, along with some practice sessions with the police department and fire department that'll happen over the next couple of years here, starting yet this year. But so everyone had a link or a copy of it. We didn't want to put it in the packet, it's so many pages, but everyone should have had a chance to take a peek at it. So yep, that's where we're at with it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on the plan? If not, if we could have a motion.
I'd motion to approve the emergency operations plan as presented to us in our packets, or not physical packets, but email.
Support.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 And opposed? Alrighty. Next is the approval of the North Muskegon Schools and City of North Muskegon Maintenance Partnership.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jansen, for being in attendance today in support of this. This is a concept that Sam and I started discussing several years ago, anticipating that at some point we were going to have to do something when Mr. Bozell retired, and we're at that point now. And I asked, you ask yourself, how do you replace a person like Jim Bozell? And the answer is you don't. But you try to do the best you can with a full team of people, and that's what we're doing with a partnership with our city. We've had great success working with our city. We're really fortunate here in North Muskegon, and I think we're going to look at this decision in the long run, and it's going to be another win-win for the city and school. This transition's actually already started to happen. I want to put that plug in, whether Mr. Jansen was here or not. The city helped us with snow removal this past winter. They'll be doing all of that from now on. They've started helping with the lawn maintenance, some grounds things around the school, and as of a few hours ago, this morning, they were helping on a water line break that happened in Miss Johnson's room. And they were here. Jim called them. They got a chance to see some of the tunnels in the building and start to get to know us a little bit more. They've already started helping Jim outside with some spring duties. And I don't want to, I'm not going to exact quote Jim, but he's very pleased with where this partnership is heading. So that was a conversation we had this morning. So I'm excited about the partnership. Sad about what we approved last month, Jim Bozell's retirement. But I think this is a good move forward. And thanks again, Sam, for being here and all that you do for us. We appreciate it.
Any questions? Sam, do you have anything to add, or?
Do you want me to podium?
You can do whatever you want. You already did your spiel at City Council last week, right?
Yeah.
That's not good yet, Canada.
Oh, it's not?
We can move that.
That's all right.
They'll hear you.
Okay. Sam Jansen, North Muskegon City Manager. I'm happy to answer any questions about the operations of our department, how do we plan to assist the school on a day-to-day basis for, I'd say, medium to major items, so we can respond in a timely fashion as we would throughout town. Next week is, I think, actually 8 years for me here in North Muskegon, and when I started, we had 2 full-time employees in that department. We couldn't keep them. I'm happy to report at this time we have 9 full-time employees in that department and 3 seasonal. So we have the capacity to add this with a lot of expertise that we've never had before in building trades. As part of this, we will be creating a new management position in our Department of Public Works, who will ultimately be the primary contact. We have to post that job because I'm going to be probably pulling somebody out of the union for that position. But we're very excited about this new opportunity. I think, as Kurt stated, it's a win-win for our organization. So definitely a win for the community.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are you going to have somebody in the building, this building, all day?
Not all day.
Not all day.
So
How's that process going to work?
it will.
Yeah, I mean, we can get a little detail. I mean, Sam just said we're gonna have a contact assigned to us that will be going through the building. They will not necessarily be waiting necessarily in the building for something to happen. We will continue to use our system that maintenance requests get put in. Those jobs will be divvied out. If it's an electric, this morning, great example. If it's a water or a plumbing issue, our contact person might be the one coming over, or they might send their guy that specializes in more plumbing things. So we will definitely see bodies from the city in our building every day. It won't necessarily always be the same exact person, although we will have that one direct contact that we'll be dealing with. But Sam used a great word, expertise. He has a crew of people that have expertise in different areas, and so we'll lean on that contact person to decide who it should be that's over here. But we will have access to that every day.
Yeah. So the ticket system is going to be an important tool for us in coordination with your administrators to make sure that items are addressed in the fashion that they need to be addressed. So while a wall may need to be painted, it may not be the top priority. So I think summertime, we're going to see a lot of kind of the cleanup items that Jim may be doing now occurring when we have a bit more time and more staff readily available to hammer those out in a timely fashion. But medium to emergency items will be here, there's no question. So we have 24-hour on-call staff in that department. So if something occurs, I don't know your alarm system, so I don't know how they go off. But if there were an issue that were to occur at night, our staff will be there, just as we would for a lift station or a water main.
And we'll continue to work with CSM to contract a day porter. So there will be person, custodial maintenance type person on site all the time, and then more.
Thanks, Sam. Any other questions for Sam? Thanks for coming.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks for being here.
All right, if there are no other questions, we can take a motion.
I move to approve the North Muskegon Public Schools and City of North Muskegon Maintenance Partnership.
Support?
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, next, the NMPS Montague Area Public School Food Service Partnership.
Yep. I'm going to talk to 449 and 450, kind of, they just seem to go together with replacing Michelle. Again, there's not many people working in schools left that do the job that Ms. Lejoie does for us. She transitioned into that job from transportation and learned the food service. That's, again, not a common thing. And so we looked at lots of different options of moving forward, and from contracts, contracting out these services to hiring somebody, and then started also looking at other potential partnerships. There are 2 people we're going to be tapping into for leadership at Montague and at Whitehall that are known in the county as go-to people. Food service, Dan Gorman, you've probably seen his name in the paper over the last several years, getting recognition for partnerships with farmers and the farmers market and just different things that he brings. We will reap the benefits of that. And then Penny at Whitehall, we are looking at, when I say we, Whitehall District Schools and North Muskegon, if this partnership falls into place, we've already had 2 other schools that are interested in talking to us in the future of expanding this. So kind of building our own little consortium in the county to look at doing busing differently. A career tech, just as an example, it'll make more sense for a bus, a career tech bus from Whitehall to make a quick stop here in North Muskegon and grab a few more kids, then head to the career tech center than both of us sending buses to the career tech center. That's just one simple example, but if we get more schools involved, our costs, fiscal responsibility even be better. That's, again, just an example. So our plan is to make this as seamless as possible for our people, obviously. We're looking at phone numbers, being North Muskegon, phone numbers that get sent to the appropriate person, so that our parents, so that the services know that they're going to be talking with our parents, for one. Will we have some bugs to work out? Yeah, probably, but in the long run, I'm confident we're going to get there, and that our parents are going to be happy with their bus service, just like they always have been, and our food services as well. So I'm excited about these, but again, bummed that my buddy Michelle is not going to be here next year. So she's going to be doing her own thing.
I have a question about the availability of buses then for like extracurricular and field trips and stuff. I don't really understand how this works if we're sharing.
Yeah, we will own our own buses to start this, and we'll own the maintenance of those. And we actually just bought 2 used buses from Whitehall, which we had been searching for replacements. It just happened to be Whitehall that was selling them. So we should be sitting pretty good with busing. The other positive would be that if we do run into a bind with needing a driver, needing a bus, they'll have them for us. Michelle has made that work in the past, and it's actually usually been Whitehall that's helped us out when we've been in a bind for a bus and or a driver. So it'll be a little more formalized now.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question about the busing. Traditionally, our bus drivers have all been CPR certified.
Okay.
Do you know how that's going to, is that a part of training that Whitehall gives their drivers, or?
I don't know whether it's a part of what Whitehall does currently, but I can tell you that we're not changing any expectations for our employees. These, for the first year at least, these will continue to be our employees. We'll be purchasing the leadership or the supervision of the transportation system. And we'll use next year to assess whether we should combine employees into one group or keep it how it is. Our expectations for our employees will not change with this. Same would be said for the food service.
So we've had this conversation before, and I just think as we move forward with this partnership or transportation in particular, that as we evaluate it, that we pay special attention to how our special education students are being served. Michelle did an outstanding job with that, and the flexibility that sometimes is required for that. And as we become a larger group, I'm just concerned that there's not going to be quite the same flexibility and consistency in that. And and I'm not saying that I'm not for this. I'm all for this. But as we move forward, I just want to make sure that when we evaluate it, that we make sure that we particularly look at that population and make sure that we're continuing to serve their needs at the level that we have, and if we're not, what we can do to tweak that. And so I just want to throw that out on the table.
Point well taken. A great example of that is happening right now. We have an Oak Ridge bus that's actually transporting one of our special education students. If that was next year, that would continue. We would not be looking at wanting to have kids on the bus longer than what they need to be, and we would still be looking for options with other districts of what's better for the student. So your point is a good one, Marion. We need to keep that in mind as we move this forward. I agree.
Okay. Any other questions regarding those two?
I would motion approval of the North Muskegon Public Schools and Montague Area Public Schools Food Service Partnership first.
Support.
Okay, it's moved and second. Any other questions on the Montague agreement? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. And then if there's any other questions on the Whitehall District agreement, or we could have a motion for that one.
I move that we approve the agreement between North Muskegon and Whitehall School District for transportation.
Support.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay. Next, we've got three agreements, and as Steve mentioned, we discussed these in finance.
Yeah, I apologize, I didn't tell you this, but these come to the full board with recommendation from the finance committee for approval. Sorry about that, I didn't get specific enough.
Paul Henderson joined us by phone from wherever he is.
Probably his
hovering
couch.
in his couch to kind of walk us through these a little bit. So if there are some questions about these in specific, or maybe Curtis, if you want to.
I will do my best,
To
otherwise I'll
summarize
phone a
them?
friend. No, I made a joke about Paul probably listening from his couch, and it's because he's completely laid up with his back. That's been a struggle for Paul for a little over a month now, seeing specialists and doing other things, and I feel bad for the guy. So Paul, I know you're watching, listening. Get healthy quick. Yeah, I can try. I can,
Yeah,
answer,
just- you can
I can
kind-
answer questions, or I can just say that I'm going to put a couple of plugs in. The companies that are being asked to be approved are all ones we've dealt with in the past and had great luck with. Parkway, Moss, and then the REMC approval or bid process. for the Dell computers, and they're all the low bid. So win-win. They're companies that know us, we know them, and they were the best cost. So the savings to our tech fund and sinking fund, we'll take that every time we go out for bids.
Additionally, to give you more information, I'm just going to share with you the low bid being Parkway on the LED lighting was $80,825. Other bids came in at $90,264 and $97,796. So that was nicely favorable. And then in the classroom wiring, Moss came in at $59,720.98, and the other bidder came in at $87,913. So significant savings for the district on both these.
Great, thanks Steve and Kurt for that information. And the REMC one, that one's,
Yeah, the REMC, just to remind everyone how that works, that's a bid process that's put out on almost anything you can possibly think of that happens once a year. Any company that wants to can bid on that. REMC, as a big consortium, does the investigating and all the legwork on that to come up with what is the best and the lowest bid, meeting all the specs, everything else. So they basically do the bid process for us as school districts. So throughout the year, if you need something, you can go to that REMC if it's what you're after, and that is your low price you're going to pay. That's already.
so that's why that's not on this
Correct.
sheet here. With the-
Yeah, we could, Mark, do you know about how much the teacher computers for Dell was approximately?
It was like I used like a whole cart, so that's the monitor and everything. It's about $750 to $800 each. Yeah.
Okay.
REMC's our friend, for sure, that whole process.
Okay. Any other questions on any of those? And if not, we'll go through them in order, but it's kind of easier to mention them all as we discussed in the plans.
I move that we approve the Parkway electronic auditorium lighting project.
Support.
Any further questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? For Moss Telecom?
I move that we approve the Moss Telecom project for classroom wiring.
Support?
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion on Moss Telecom? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And finally, the REMC computer purchase for teacher computers.
I'd motion approval of that REMC Dell computer purchase.
Support.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, thank you. Next, new item that wasn't on the original agenda that went around, the approval of varsity girls basketball coach, Ms. Knuth.
Yeah, I think everyone at the table knows Ms. Knuth, and I'm very excited. I know Mr. Byard would echo anything that I would say and probably say even more in support of this. But it's pretty exciting that Ms. Knuth is interested in this job and ready to take it over. If you remember, she helped us get through the end of this past season. Did a great job with the girls, and just really excited to have her in that varsity position. I know she's gonna do great.
I move that we approve Sarah Knuth for the basketball coach position.
Support.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Excellent choice as always, and looking forward to another good year there. Okay, that's it for that. Now we've got the presentation, State of the District presentation.
All good there, CJ? All good? All right, thank you for your help. Appreciate it. Well, if everyone, is this my clicker, Christy?
I'll turn it on.
Yep, I'm gonna get it. What's that?
I don't have my picture. There it is. That's what I thought. I thought I had that. Okay.
All set?
Did you change your
I
picture?
did. I think so. It's blinking at me. Yep. All right, we'll get this rolling now. Thank you for the patience over the last 2.5 years. I think we haven't done a in-person State of the District since the pandemic, so it feels kind of good to do this in person. We have communicated the State of the District information with the community during the pandemic, but not in this kind of a setting. So it's good to have this happening now. It says March on there because that's when it was supposed to happen, and I was on antibiotics for 10 days after having a ear infection. I haven't had an ear infection, I think, since I was a little kid. So thanks for helping make this happen today. Just to give everyone an idea of how this is going to work, we are live streaming this, just like our board meeting. It's being recorded and it'll be on our webpage. So at any time, anybody in this room can stop and ask questions to any of us. But what we're also doing is putting a link on our webpage. So anybody watching right now can go on, put a question. Anyone that watches the recording a week from now, whenever, they can also put questions on, and then we'll do a question and answer sheet that is shared with everyone in the community so that everyone has the same information. So what are we going to focus on today? There's so many different things we could focus on here with North Muskegon Schools, but what we try to focus on with the State of the District are updates on the Board of Education strategic plan or goals, the district goals. Want to touch on student demographics, talk about a few little tweaks, or not tweaks, little changes that we're seeing, academic performance data, obviously, some updates on technology, budget update, which I know just recently in a board meeting we had that, but we're adding a little bit of kind of projecting with some of the trends that we're seeing, what is that maybe going to mean as we move into the future. We touched on a lot of the partnerships. The word potential's there, because up until a couple minutes ago there was potential. Now it's going to happen. So probably won't hit on a whole lot of that because we did that during the meeting. And then want to look a little bit to the future. There's some things coming up not only this summer, but as we move forward from some of the things that we've learned from the pandemic. Because how can you start out any presentation nowadays without talking about COVID? So we're not going to talk about the horrible sides of the COVID. What we wanted to do is use this opportunity to say thank you. Thank you to Norse Nation, to our students, to our staff, our parents, grandmas, grandpas, uncles, aunts, and everyone else in our community that stuck with us, showed resilience, and all the while we continued to expect the high traditions and excellence that we always have had. Our goal all along was to keep our kids in classrooms with our amazing staff. We, and I'm saying that looking at our Board of Education, made decisions along the way that we knew everybody wasn't going to be just happy as heck about, right? We had people with opinions all over the place. But our decisions were based on what do we need to do as a board to keep our kids in our classrooms with our teachers. And I think we did a good job with that. I'm looking back, nobody was perfect, but I think we made some pretty good decisions. Some of the other things that we did along the way was we re-emphasized the need to prepare ourselves to assist our kids in their mental well-being to the best of our ability. We learned that and it's not new information. Guy made a hierarchy of needs about it a long, long time ago, but if kids aren't feeling safe, if they've got their mental well-being is not solid, their academics don't matter as much. And so what did we do? We have fully invested in therapeutic crisis intervention for schools. Every single one of our staff members is trained on that, and many, about 25% of them, have gone through advanced training. We are involved with Project Safe, and we're rejuvenating our positive behavior intervention and supports. The principals, along with Mr. Allen, have been working on that. Our school improvement meetings this month, and then our professional development, some work over the summer are going to get us ready to fully rejuvenate that program with our full staff by next fall. So pretty proud of that, and working with different people around the county, I think that's something we can be really proud of. There's a link on the presentation to the board's strategic plan. My focus here is to show some commonalities between the board's goals, the district goals, and then the things that we're implementing, and you're going to see some of those common themes through this. Student achievement, student health and wellness, and fiscal responsibility. I think 3 pretty solid goals for a Board of Education. And they tie directly with our district school improvement goals, which are positive behavior support, a mental well-being, you could say, program, and then some academic focused areas. I want to touch a little bit on some student demographics. We're seeing some areas that we're getting a little bit of a change, and then we got some other demographic areas where we're pretty consistent with where we've been for quite a while now. You can see this is how the parent identifies their student race and how we're made up. About 84% of our students identify as white, with the rest coming from different minority groups. You can see those. Socioeconomic status mirrors pretty close to free and reduced lunch. Our free and reduced lunch percentage is actually a little closer to 30%, just because they use a few different things that you can also qualify for free and reduced lunch for. But that's a statistic that hasn't changed a whole lot, at least in the past 15 years, with about 25% of our students coming from economically disadvantaged families. Where do our kids come from? Not new news to the board, and not new news to a whole lot of people connected with North Muskegon Public Schools. About 60-ish% of our kids live here in town. About 40% come from somewhere else. And you can see all the different schools that make up our Norsemen. There's a little disclaimer there with Muskegon Heights. Muskegon Heights isn't really identified as by the state of Michigan anymore as a region. So we have kids that live in Muskegon Heights, but they would be depicted under Muskegon, Orchard View, or Mona Shores. So they're kind of mixed in with those numbers, and we know their address, and but this is how the state would report it. The great part there is, another thing that hasn't changed, is a student might come to us from another school district, let's say as a first grader. They become a Norseman. They stay with us, and that's a trend that continues. So that's where you see they come from all over the county. Our school choice parents, I'm going to put a plug in, they're choosing us because they value education. These families are doing whatever they need to do to get their student to North Muskegon every day to learn. And about 40%, so almost every other kid you pass in the hallway is a school choice student. IEPs, or individual education plans. This is a number that is trending a little bit up, but it's not skyrocketing by any means. We were 9-point-some% about 10 years ago, and we went to 10%. Now we're 11% for students with special education students with an identified education plan. Because of this, what have we done? We've added staff to meet the needs of these students. And so as this trend of student needs has gone up, so has our staffing has matched it. Probably a trend that looks like it's probably going to continue. I don't think we're going to see any huge growth, but that's probably something that'll gradually trickle up a little bit for us. This is one I want to talk a little bit more on, and there's a follow-up slide that really says the same thing, just in a little different way. Again, the Board of Education knows, and many in the community know, that we really target to have about 75 kids in a cohort by the time they leave 5th grade. That is a number that helps us have a pretty stable budget, helps us with the staffing, and just seems to work. As you can see, middle school, high school, we're there. We actually kind of have this bubble of kids over the last few years where we've had some bigger classes. They're on their way out. What's coming behind are not the number that we're really necessarily targeting. We're looking at reasonings of what are the reasons why. One of those is potentially number of school of choice kids moving. The pandemic had people doing homeschooling. However, a bigger factor there, and Mark and I are going to be doing more digging and then get that information to the board and the community, but there's less kids in the city of North Muskegon than there used to be, even as of 5 years ago. That's a trend, and you can see the trend of school-age kids living in our boundaries is going down. So that's a factor as well. So a lot of different variables there, but we'll see what happens with the school choice windows open, and we'll see what happens with that. And we may have to make some decisions. Earlier I talked about making staffing decisions based on the needs of the students. Well, this would be one of those, where what do our numbers support? But we hope those numbers are going to go up a little bit there in the elementary. This really says the same thing, shows the middle school, high school is pretty much at that target we're after, and elementary, as of right now, isn't. The DK through 2nd, the early childhood area, that's kind of the number we want, and then creep it up to a little bit more in the upper L. I'm going to do a handoff first to Mr. Allen, and then he's going to do a handoff to Mr. Messbergen. I forgot to thank them at the beginning. The whole administrative team helped put this together, but these two definitely were my right-hand peeps. So I appreciate it, and as long as Mr. Allen is feeling okay from being pinned to the wall with duct tape, if you haven't seen the video, please look at it. I think it's all over Facebook right now. Pretty cool stuff. So the floor is yours as long as you're ready.
Yeah.
No tape burns or anything?
No. And if you did watch it, we kept it suspenseful. So this is a graph that the board has seen before, and so have our school improvement team teachers, and also I think the whole staff has seen these before. But it's been updated to include our NWEA map data for grades K through 7, which would include now October, and then the end of January, start of February were our testing windows. So each color is a different graduating class or cohort, and then it's their average score. And then that black line is the national average pre-COVID that was averaged over either an 8 or 10 year period. They have two different norms. I can't remember which one I used, but that's the national average pre-COVID. So you guys have heard me say this before, but I feel like we're doing pretty well. Like, if you didn't know there was a pandemic, I don't think this graph would suggest to anyone that there was a pandemic, at least in terms of academic outcomes. So this is the math graph. Math and ELA are more challenging area to help all students be as successful and have learning outcomes we want, but it's still pretty good. Okay, wrong way. Here's the same graph, but for their reading scores. Everything's the same except it's a different subject. And we score a little bit more favorably on average. That's good wait time, yeah? You guys can tell me to come back if you want. I'm getting my buttons mixed up. So there's a lot to look at right here. This is actually a table that's on our website as required by federal law during last year's, in the heat of the pandemic, and now it's somewhat cooling off. And they were ambiguous about what they expected exactly. So we as a district chose the 33rd percentile nationally pre-COVID as our cutoff to say this is a kid who's somewhere in the ballpark of not behind. So if you're 32nd percentile or below pre-COVID average, we said you're behind. And if you're 33rd or above, we said you're not behind. And that was an in-district decision. And why we didn't pick 35th or 30th? Because we didn't. And so this is what percentage of kids in all these different federally mandated subgroups that met that cutoff at different times. So laser pointer doesn't work on the
TV.
digital screen.
Sorry.
Ain't cats that are watching, I want to apologize. So, you can see in May when we ended last year's, the end of last school year, our goal was 70% of our kids would not be behind. We didn't quite make that goal overall for math or reading. And then in October we had 6-ish weeks with the kids. We're in a similar spot where we left off as we're trying to kind of offset summer slide, get to know kids, set up procedures, routines, get to know them. But then between October and February, you can see that around 10% of our students that were behind were no longer behind. So they made it over that 33rd percentile threshold. And so our goal for the end of the year, this next month when we test a third time, was the 75th or 75% of our kids aren't behind. If you look at the overall, we're already at 77% of kids aren't behind in reading, and 76, actually almost 77% aren't behind in math. So to me, this is really, really encouraging, and I'm really, hopefully for good reason, really optimistic about what we're going to look like when we crunch all these numbers at the end of May from May's testing. And if you look at the different subgroups too, one of the subgroups that jumps out historically would be those with an IEP, the special education subgroup, which for various reasons struggled more than the general ed population with the COVID protocols, which makes sense, but is not acceptable or fortunate. But you can see that group is also making those similar gains, if not greater, now that we've had a little bit more chance to help them out. So everyone, all ships are rising. Not the best analogy, but I got nothing to do with tape right here. Okay, this looks familiar because I made these graphs and I'm not the most original guy all the time. This one is PSAT and SAT data. So that students start taking that in 8th grade and it goes through 11th grade. And math, as you already know, is an area that we keep struggling in. Although 2 years ago would be our class of 2021 is the green line. That looks relatively favorable. Our current juniors are the yellow line, so we'll see what happens. Sometimes juniors between October and then April when they take the SAT make quite a big jump. You can see the slope often increases a lot that junior year, whether it's for motivation, learning, or a combination, we're not sure. So we'll have to see how they do. But they actually also, am I going the right way? They're also yellow in there, but they're doing a lot more middle of the road. They're actually behind other lines, it looks like, further ELA portion of the SAT. So we'll see how that goes. But these are all updates. At some point I should probably get rid of like the class of 2017, but at least their data off the graph. And now I'm entering, did you guys have any questions or comments before I start Paul's part? Okay, yes. It's made of duct tape? I don't know. Thin material tonight. So, in terms of technology, we're going to just continue on with our one-to-one model with Chromebooks so that all students have the opportunity to use Brightspace, Seesaw, Google Classroom, and a wide variety of other digital and online tools that they can use in class, at home and at school. And then what's coming up, you've already heard classroom wiring is being replaced. Every teacher is going to get a new PC, which is going to also have an updated document camera. I got one of the pilot demo ones, and it's a lot better. You can also use it a lot more easily as a webcam, too. And then the LED fixtures in the Flex are being updated, but you guys knew that, too. Maybe not in the audience, but now you do. Also, the technology millage is going to expire after the 23-24 school year, so we have a couple school years left. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, we're always looking for new ways to use technology to help teachers and kids learn more efficiently and maybe with more depth. So in the case that occurs, we're going to be making sure there's professional development so that teachers know how to do that. And our school app is now available to Android phone users, like now, which was news to me today. And Apple is a little bit more stringent in their vetting process, but it should be any second now, Paul assures me, from, I would imagine, his couch. That's not my slide. If you want, I hope you have colorful graphs.
I told John I had to have colorful graphs because Kurt and John both had them too. So I do apologize. I don't have jokes like John. I just have charts. So as you guys approved back in, I believe, February, the far right is the amendment that you guys approved. As you can see at the bottom, we're going to run about $160,000 deficit. I take you to the left side. We originally thought we were going to run a surplus of a little bit less than $5,000. If you remember, the main reason for that big difference was we assumed enrollment was going to be a lot higher than what it actually came in. We assumed a little bit over 1,000. We finished at about 965 kids. So, and then the far part is that our fund balance is going to maintain around 10.7%. In June, I will have an updated final amendment. Hopefully that is going to get a little bit better, but time will tell. The big thing is as I said in February, unlike normal years where districts, you want to kind of maintain that fund balance or slowly grow it. With COVID and all the federal and state grants that we have, we're going to be kind of on a little roller coaster for a little bit because we got all this one-time money. We have to figure out how do we appropriately use it, because in the next couple of slides you can see where some districts may run into a little bit of an issue in 2025. So talking with Kurt and John, kind of looking at enrollment projections for the next couple of years. Again, this is kind of where our best thought is as of right now. So these on the bottom, these are years in terms of fall. So fall of 22 is next school year, right? So the red dots are the projections. So we started with 965, and as one of Kurt's slides, we have a lot of high 10, 11, and 12th grades, and we have low kindergartners coming in, right? So obviously, with that, you're going to lose kids just right off, just through attrition, and we're not going to do anything. Like, there's nothing North Muskegon can do when you lose 90 kids and you bring in 50. I mean, you just got to take you to school choice. So that's where we're going to drop a little bit again, assuming that. We're going to assume at 955, 950, 955, and then 965. So part of, as Kurt kind of alluded, and he had a slide, I took school choice numbers all the way back from 2013, because the one thing that, since I've been here, since I actually been here right when COVID started, actually, so I only know North Muskegon via COVID. With all of the strenuous stuff that you guys have done, how does that impact our enrollment, right? Has COVID impacted North Muskegon's enrollment? And with enrollment being roughly 40% school choice, let's look at that. So the orange line is the losses. So those are the kids that live inside our district that go somewhere else, that are reported to someone else. So this could be as simple as they go to the Wesley from the MAISD Special Ed Center. Wesley reports them. Even though they live in our district, we bus them over there, all that stuff. The IC reports them, so that's actually a loss for North Muskegon. The gains are obviously kids that come inside the district. So our losses, right, so if North Muskegon was going to be impacted via COVID, the losses have maintained roughly the same number. So that, in my opinion, it's not because our enrollment dipped because people from North Muskegon that lives inside our boundaries are going somewhere else, okay? It's right there. So if you see in 2020, we took 407 FTEs from districts around us, and now we're down to 386, right? So that's a decrease of 20. Again, I want you guys to be aware of these numbers. You can take them at face value. So I use this example. If I'm a kid that goes to Puffer, and my parents moved inside to North Muskegon's district and after a year, that number I was, in 2020 was it when I lived in Puffer, went to North Muskegon, I'd be a gain. I'd be one of the 407. And then if I moved inside to North Muskegon's boundary, I'm no longer on this sheet because I'm not a school choice kid, right? So a dip could be because people moved inside our boundaries. So I just wanted, no different a loss. A loss could be something different. So the other factor is, as Kurt alluded, is what is our resident population looking like, and is that a indicator of what we are going to see in the past? So years again are fiscal years this time, but gains and losses are the same as this sheet right here. The difference is you can extrapolate this data with our account information that Chrissy does and kind of figure out how many kids that are K-12 that live inside our boundaries. Okay, so you take the gains out of our account, add the losses FTE-wise. So I did that for all of that stuff. And then on the far right is for the kids that live inside North Muskegon's boundaries, what percentage do we educate at North Muskegon Public Schools? Okay, so again, I'm trying to find data that shows was there a drop, was there a dip, and what is the factor. So as you can see in that resident column, it is interesting that in 2020, we had 722 kids that were in our boundaries. This year it's 660. So that's a loss of 60 kids, which ironically is roughly about our loss that we experienced this year. And if we educate, so that's 60, and we educate 87%, that's roughly 54 FTEs that North Muskegon lost in those 2 years. So, but if I think about this, I didn't lose them to school choice, right? They didn't leave North Muskegon for another district. So like when I was explaining this to Kurt, if I had to guess, I would assume that they left, that they moved out. They moved to a different community. They moved outside the county. They moved somewhere else not to come back. And what are those factors like that? So understanding that Muskegon County's births are still declining every year, that I could see this number slowly creeping down, right? So if you extrapolate, we normally are running 88, 89, 87%. If there's another 20 kids less next year, that we would just be inherently losing 15 kids, right? So then it comes back to school choice, where to make up those losses because of just our population as the community decreasing, we have to take either more kids via school choice, these gains, right? Or we have to start right sizing. Oh, I'm going the wrong way now. So what Kurt and I and John looked at was on the revenue side again, because most of it's all revenue. So for fiscal year 2023, foundation would go to $9,050. That's a $350 increase. That's roughly what the governor proposed back in February, with our enrollment estimated at $950. That's an additional $209,000 of state revenue compared to 2022. Similar thing in 24 and 25, it's a $200 per kid increase with our enrollment at $955 and $965 respectively. There's a $223,000 increase from 23 and $282,000 from 25, or from 24 to 25. So that chart, the green is the revenue that we just showed. That's our that is our total revenue for the general fund with a bunch of estimates, right? So the green is, if you see in '24, we ballooned way up to almost 11.55 million, and then we drop back down. So part of that is because the federal grants that we get for COVID are gone, right? So now that revenue drops back, but as you can see, expenses historically just compound over and over and over again. So that's where what many districts, including North Muskegon, we are using one-time dollars to fund non-one-time expenses. So at some point, when the grant runs out, which is in '24, '25 becomes the big, there's a gap between the green and the red, or the green and the blue. So that's where, and then that orange line down is the fund balance, and you see the percentage on the right. So if all of this is exactly what happens, I'm not saying that it is, but that's our best guess, we're going to be a little bit above 9% by the end of 2025 after this, I'll call it a roller coaster in quotes, for this fund balance. So that's where the team, with some of this federal and state grants that we have received, some of this is not included in there because it's not allocated. We still have it unallocated. The intent is either we got to slowly start to right size, because we do have great years in '23 and '24. We're going to maintain that, right? We're going to maintain our fund balance. We're going to maintain. We have plenty of time to address that, I call it a cliff, but that gap between the revenues and expenses. Either A, we can start looking at increasing our fund balance a little bit higher by utilizing those federal and state grants to bump up our foundation or bump up our fund balance, so then we know in '24 or '25 we're going to slowly drop that back down above and still maintain the fund balance above 10%. So there's a lot of looking forward, but there's also we know we're going to be fine for '23 and '24 with these assumptions. Do you have any questions about my lovely charts? Hopefully John did those charts look good?
I approve.
Thank you. I appreciate. I think that's actually my last one. Yep. No questions? Scot-free.
Thank you, John and Mark. I appreciate it. These guys are characters to work with every day, as you probably can pick up on, and I know you already have picked up on that. They keep it fun. So thank you. Appreciate it. Want to talk a little bit more about the partnerships, and like I said, that word potential could come off there now. The business services, we're already involved with Fruitport Schools. It's going great. You just heard from Mark, and Jess is in the audience here today too as well. So that has gone very, very well. We talk about school consolidation. You hear it in the media and other places, and normally what people are talking about there is taking a couple of schools and smushing them together and become one. I'm a firm believer that there's other ways to consolidate schools and still have some win-wins, and that's through partnerships that make sense for everyone involved. That's what we're looking at doing. I don't think many school districts in the state of Michigan want to lose their identity. I think they want to look at being fiscally responsible and keeping their doors open, and that's what I believe we want. So I believe these partnerships will help do that. In the board meeting, we talked about our transportation supervision partnership with Whitehall Food Service, with Montague, and then combining our maintenance departments with the city of North Muskegon and North Muskegon Public Schools. If anyone has any questions on those, I think it'd be a great spot to throw into the link on the webpage, and we'll do our best to keep the community understanding where we're heading with that. So really excited about these. The last thing I'm going to say is one more positive thank you to Michelle and Jim. These are two people that have dedicated a lot of years to North Muskegon Public Schools. They've become and are all of our friends, and they also do an amazing job for us. So we're not replacing them. We're wishing them well, and we're moving on to the best of our ability. So I'm going to miss them both, and I know a whole bunch of other people are. Oops, went the wrong way. Sorry. I've had people ask about an update on the recreation facility, so it's great that Mr. Jansen's here too. But first want to thank Sam, and the North Muskegon City Council for taking us along with this ride. Will, Steve, I think you guys can remember 5 or so years ago, these communications and meetings starting to happen. And we're in a whole different place now, and it's pretty exciting. But we have a good thing going in North Muskegon with our partnership with the city and the school working together. This is just going to be another example of it. Happy to say that as soon as the snow is out of the way here next spring, we're going to start to see some things moving. That's already in place. We're just waiting for that timeline to happen. That will impact the diamond sports, so the baseball and softball complex, as well as where the existing baseball field is right now, being turned into a multi-use area, as well as competition soccer. The tennis courts, still in the works. We continue to talk with our contacts in Lansing. Very confident that that's going to happen. Very confident that we're going to get funding from the state level to help us with that. We just, it's not in place right now, but all things are pointing in that direction. So just good stuff, and hats off to our city council. And thank you, Sam, for engaging with us right from the get-go. When it's all said and done, total game changer for the city of North Muskegon with these facilities. Total game changer. So, if you want the most up-to-date information, the city, Sam and his staff, you go to their webpage under residents, the drop down to build to play. This is where all of the updates go, and people can keep up on that as things are happening. So now, fun stuff. Get to look at where we're heading with some things. You just got a lot of information, and I want to touch on some main bullet points that I think fit in with what you've heard already and where we're going, and then a couple other just add-ons. Summer learning program. It was a huge hit last year. Had a lot of kids involved. Had many parents hoping that that was going to continue. Being fiscally responsible, we have dollars that were allocated by our state to us for summer programming last year that will fully fund summer program this year. Not every district in the state can say that. We did a great job with that, and because of that, our kids are going to reap the benefit of that. It's going to be open to everybody. Information is going to go out this week, and anyone can sign up. However, our staff, just like we did last year, is going to target kids that they really believe could benefit from being involved in a summer learning program. It's going to be hands-on again, but we're not under necessarily as many restraints from the state, so we're going to Norsemanize it, tweak it a little bit that we think are going to be good things for kids, and also for our staff that are going to be helping us out. Our commitment to TCIS, Therapeutic Crisis Intervention for Schools, we're all in. You're going to hear a lot more about TCIS. We're going to continue to look for ways to beef up the training and practices with our staff. We're already seeing wins from this. You bring kids back from not really being in school for a couple of years. There's going to be some behavior things. TCIS has helped us this year, I think, tighten that little curve that we would have been on. Without it, I think we'd be in a different place. So same thing with positive behavior supports, rejuvenating that program. It never went away, but we're rejuvenating, bringing it back. And then hats off and a plug for our clinicians on mindfulness and every other aspect when it comes to the mental well-being of our kids. When I say clinicians, our counselors, social workers, and school psychologists. New position for us. Hi, Molly, if you're watching. The mindfulness lessons each week this year have been amazing. I know the board has gotten those, and they're available to parents as well. But our staff are using those, and we're just going to get better with that. We actually are to the point now where we're piloting a mindfulness program that does exactly what our staff was doing, developing little lessons that the staff can just hit play and facilitate. We're looking at potentially purchasing something like that and getting in on the front end of it, so cost-wise it's going to be really a good deal for us. That would allow our clinicians the ability to be in classes more when these things are being shown and be more of the facilitator versus having to develop all of these for us. They'd be developed somewhere else, and then we would implement them. So I'm excited for that. We're going to continue as a school district to make decisions that are fiscally responsible with the needs of our kids in the forefront. We always have, we always will. And as Mark touched on, we are going to have some things to talk about coming up. If some of the trends continue, we're going to, like he said, we're going to be okay for a couple years because of one-time dollars. But when those go away, we're going to need to be prepared for what that means. We can use these next 2 years, I believe, to set us up so that really we don't even see a impact from it as long as we make some decisions. So we'll be bringing more information to the board and the community on that. And then we're going to continue to work together in North Muskegon. I started out this slideshow or this presentation thanking the community for supporting us. We showed how amazing North Muskegon is, once again, through some pretty crazy times. Many communities were having all kinds of problems at board meetings and parents showing up and picketing and community members and people being at odds. We didn't always see eye to eye, but we worked together professionally, collegially, and with a caring attitude and respect. It was enviable. We were able to watch the crazy stuff on TV. It wasn't happening here. Did we have meetings with different parents with different ideas and groups with different ideas? And yeah, we did. We talked through them, and that helped make decisions. And people were respectful. So we're going to continue that. I think we learned, once again, how amazing North Muskegon is through this crazy pandemic. This is a sentence our staff came up with several years ago, and it couldn't ring any more true than it does right now. We're an educational community that gives our best and expects the best. I'm just going to end my part, and then the board, I'm going to kind of do this to you, and you can say it, your words as we move down, but I'm going to end my part with, it's a great day to be Norseman, and I truly believe that every day is a great day to be Norseman. So, thank you. And then now, from the words and the mouths of our Board of Education, the state of North Muskegon Public Schools is
Traditions.
Outstanding.
Student-focused.
Inclusive.
Tenacious.
Forward thinking.
Thank you, Board. And thanks for those that are viewing and or watching this on record. We can take questions if there are any from anyone in the room. But then there's also, please remember, there's a link on the webpage to take questions so that we can make sure everybody has the same information. So, thank you, Norseman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Great. Are there any other questions for Kurt on the State of the District presentation? Adapting to the current ways of the world, and well done. Thank you, Kurt. Next, we've got our just a discussion on our superintendent evaluation. We've got the tool in the packet that we've been using for the last few years. And so I guess we would look to do this, go into a closed session at the end of the next meeting to talk about that. That date's on here, May 16th. So if everybody could go forward and be ready for that. If there's any questions or comments on the document that we're using, or we've used now for a few years. After 1 year, we had to use a different one. Let us know, but otherwise we'll look forward to doing that at the next meeting. So we'll schedule that then for a closed session, Chris, for the next one. Okay. Next one we'll do board comments. And
I've said enough.
you said enough, right? So I was going to say, probably good to go. Ms. B?
The Pops concert was really out of this world.
I heard lots of great things about it. Unfortunately, I wasn't in town, so I'll have to see if I can view a video of it. I just want to say thank you for being here, Sam, and Kurt. You know, these partnerships, I think, are a tremendous way for us to go financially, fiscally, and expertise. The expertise we get from the Fruitports of the world who, you know, we can rely on with a little better, you know, background, and just seems to make a lot of sense, and I appreciate us working through those things as we move forward. And I guess that's it. Nice presentation tonight. Thank you, Kurt.
Yeah, I was just going to say, a very nice presentation, and I guess one of the things I took out about it is how much effort was put into it and how forward-thinking this district is, which is great to see. You just can't, even though, you know, I think we do have done and continue to do a very good job, you just can't sit there. You have to keep pushing forward, and this district definitely does that because of all you guys. It really, it showed up in that presentation. You guys are definitely looking ahead and ready to adjust and keep providing better education for our students. So thanks for that.
Well, and I'll just echo thanks and appreciation for the presentations. Mark, I always learn so much when you're here. I really enjoy that.
Should have been there for the Headley rollback discussion.
If you want, I can give you no.
If you want exciting fiscal.
That would probably make my head roll, so thank you, no. So I appreciate the State of the Union address, and, you know, I really hope that people at home do click on and listen to it. There's a lot of great information there, and you know, I'm assuming that we're gonna, you know, in the next week or two, promote that out there to the community. Pops was fabulous, as always, and the orchestra concert was equally impressive. And you talk about partnerships and collaboration, and the Reese Puffer Band, percussion and wings have been performing with our orchestra, and it's really been outstanding. So just another partnership we have with our surrounding school districts. And you know, huge kudos to Beth Slimko and Angela Corbin for everything they've done to build the music program. And I really hesitate to mention anybody's name because there are so many people involved to make these productions the way they are. But because he was here tonight, I want to call out CJ Bennett, who has been behind the scenes at everything that has happened this school year. All those performances, all the electronic stuff, and he's just really impressive, and he's only a ninth grader, and I think that he's a huge asset to this district already, and I just want to publicly acknowledge his contributions and thank him for everything that he's doing.
Yes. Okay, well, I think Mary was looking over my shoulder because I also want to thank CJ for all the amazing things that he's done. Like I mentioned before the meeting, that even for the cheerleading banquet, Ms. Corbin was having a little struggles with the projector, and he came from home and did his little wizardry in like 2 seconds, and it was all fixed, and that was just remarkable. Pops was great. It's nice to see like spring sports happening. Thank you, Sam, for being here, and I'm super excited for all of those changes. I think it's going to be great for our youth sports, which will eventually be great for our sports. And thank you for the presentation. Love a good chart. That was all great. I think that's about it.
I would echo everything that's been said, but I'd also like to add a shout out to the teachers, because the one thing that's sticking with me the most in that presentation is the numbers from October to now, that's just incredible advancement, and I'm really excited about that. So I will add thank you to the teachers to all the other things that have been said.
And Carolyn, I'm just going to add to that so that we make sure that everyone understood that that chosen performance was us picking something above and beyond. That wasn't us saying that we're going to be on like a national average growth or whatever. That was us saying this is where we want to be. And to reiterate what John already said, that black line going up through the chart was national data pre-COVID, what that slope would have looked like. And so I appreciate what you just said, because yes, it's not we're just catching kids up, it's we're staying ahead of the game. I appreciate that you brought that up.
Thank you, everybody. We are adjourned.